Good afternoon and a very warm welcome, Mr. David Bloch from David Bloch International. It is such a pleasure to have you finally here on our chat. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Lovely to join you both. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It is a real pleasure to talk to you because you are one very special kind of a manager, of an entertainer, of an artist. Tell us a little bit about your history, your story. When I go back or I join you a little bit on your social media, sometimes you go back to your past and then you show us some pictures or some things that you have done, and then I say, oh wow, wow, wow. So let us actually hear what is your story.
So I currently live in Johannesburg in South Africa, but I was born and raised in Cape Town. And ever since I was a child, the only thing I ever wanted to do was be a performer, be an actor. That was always my plan, was to be an actor in film, in television. It was never necessarily my plan to go into directing or producing, creating entertainment, creating content for live events. And after I graduated from high school in Cape Town, I traveled to Pretoria, which was about 45 minutes outside of Johannesburg, where I trained in musical theatre. So I studied everything that would ultimately allow me to audition and hopefully be cast in the kind of shows we see being performed at the big theatres in South Africa or on the West End, on Broadway. But at the time that I graduated, it was just after South Africa's first democratic elections. And in South Africa specifically, we had arts councils in all of the provinces, and they pretty much collapsed. And they used to have all the funding to produce these big scale musicals. And at the time, it was seen very much as a very Western form of theatre. South Africa, as a young democracy, was trying to find its own voice. It was trying to tell its own stories. And of course, the kind of big West End Broadway type musical was not necessarily seen as the type of show that a country so new in its democracy should be pushing so much money toward. So I kind of, at the time, looked at what work was available. And even though I had a very successful first year performing after I graduated, I realized that I was too young, too inexperienced to potentially apply for a green card or even investigate any kind of ancestry to allow me a UK visa, a special talents visa. So I started cold calling a lot of well-known corporate clients from what was then, we used to have a book in South Africa called the Yellow Pages. And I would literally scroll through the Yellow Pages and make a few phone calls in one day and ask to speak to the person who was dealing with their live events, their promotions, and so on, and hoping that somebody would take. And I actually had one woman who 2 weeks after I phoned and said, send me your details, called me with a potential job. It was a very small job. And it kind of kicked off from there. My very first show that I ever produced was back in 1999. So this year is my 21st anniversary. What a year to be celebrating 21 years. But it's been amazing. Well, thank you I'll take that. Thank you. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I think that over the years, I've been able to produce and create and direct quite a number of high profile events, and more particularly show production from a creative direction perspective for many corporate events and companies in South Africa. And I've been able to build up a wonderful rapport both on the live events as well as the television side. So producing and directing and being on the creative teams for things like our South African Film and Television Awards, the South African Music Awards, working on the African continent as well. And then building up an international relationship and contact base where I've been able to work on events, as you know, in India and Hong Kong and across Europe and in New York, Los Angeles, which has been incredible. And I've been very lucky that I've been able to still use all of my training in musical theatre. It hasn't gone to waste, because every so often I'll land up singing at a charity event or I'll land up emceeing or providing the voice of God, as we refer to it, for many of my corporate events. So my training certainly hasn't gone to waste. And the fact that I've been able to work overseas and with some of my greatest idols, whether it is the likes of Roberta Flack. Many years ago, I worked with the boy band Westlife, meeting people like Sir Bob Geldof. It's just been incredible. And to work with and meet teams from across the world and to see how other people work, what their methodology is, how they approach events, how they also treat each other as well, has been very interesting for me to see how teams working together for the first time either work and treat each other, or what they're used to, or how they used to be treated. So it's been incredible. So 21 years later, I was looking forward to 2020. I was looking forward to an incredible year. And then COVID-19 hit and the entire landscape just changed. So it's a different year to celebrate a 21st anniversary. It's not the year I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, we celebrate in 2021 your 21st anniversary. Let's say we do that.
We'll take a sabbatical. Yeah.
Yeah. You jumped so quickly actually over from the point where you perform yourself to the point where you actually produced or started producing. How was that transition actually, or that movement from one point to the other one?
I think it came out of necessity more than anything else. There just wasn't the work available. There weren't the auditions for the type of shows that I had trained for. And the thought of going to work corporate, to work like what they say in America, like a blue collar job, a regular 9 to 5, was just something that I was not prepared to even consider. So I thought, well, what is it that I need to do if I wanted to find a niche for myself, first of all, in the entertainment industry? And I knew that I had access to performers and people that could perform for background as a featured act. And I thought, well, how difficult can it be? So I've always been a natural leader. Whenever I was at school, I was either a prefect or I was on what they used to call the functions committees for, the high school dance, the matric dance, the prom, whatever you want to call it. And I did. I always enjoyed that. I always enjoyed working as part of a team, and I always enjoyed taking the creative lead on projects. So I started off, I think, confident enough with some of the things that I knew, but the more, the busier I became, and the more I found I needed to work on bigger and better things, if that is the wording I can use. I knew that I needed to really brush up on my knowledge and my experience, but the only way to do that was physically while you were working on the job. So I would smile. I would smile and wave. And if somebody said to me, "Can you do this?" I would say, "Absolutely." And then I would go ahead and just do it.
Google it.
Google it. You know what? I think you know what? I was always. You know what? I think I had a lot of fantastic friends that I could always call upon for advice, which was wonderful. But also in my mind, there was no doubt of failure. Like, failure was not an option for me. So I never considered what would happen if I don't succeed. It was always a question of, I will succeed. I have to succeed, because the alternative is not something I can even consider. And as much as it might not have ever been my career trajectory, my career path in my own kind of way of thinking of where my life was going to go, if anything, I have traveled more. I have seen more shows than I've ever thought possible. I've interacted with, shared the stages with, being able to collaborate with more people around the world than I ever thought was possible. At one point, I genuinely thought that I would be what they call a gigging actor, which certainly is an actor that goes from show to show to show. In South Africa, certainly there's no such thing as minimum wage like you have in places like the UK and on Broadway. So you earn and you live paycheck to paycheck. So I never went into theater thinking I was going to make money. I never went into theater thinking I would have money saved to allow me to travel and to see some of the shows that I've always dreamed of seeing. And the fact that I've been able to do that and so much more, I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I really am.
It's amazing. But also, I think we're listening to you is that you followed the path, but you also like took the opportunities, like when you said, I had to find my niche, I think
Mm,
this is exactly what a lot of people may be looking for. They look for a niche, and they
mm,
maybe don't even see the niche. I think it's
mm.
not only that there is niches, you also have to see the niche. You have to
Yeah.
see where you can go. I think this is very much important when we talk to young people, to young entrepreneurs, what what they can do, or what they have to be like careful of. They have to see the opportunities. I think this is
Mm.
something what a lot of people maybe just miss. I think that's what you did, and that's why it got,
Progressed.
yeah, it progressed. Yeah, I think
I
that's the
think a
right
lot of
right.
people have a plan and they think that they have to stick to that plan, and nothing is going
Mm,
to kind of sway them from that path.
mm,
And because my path kind of came to a grinding halt, I was open to all the different paths that my life could take. I certainly wanted it to be in entertainment and to continue in what I had trained, or a natural kind of offshoot, which is why our current environment is now so interesting, because it's a question of, well,
mm.
what is the natural pivot? I think, as a
Yeah.
colleague used today, what is the natural way of reinventing yourself? So
Yes.
Mm,
I was very open to the opportunities. And I dabbled in quite a lot. I mean, the fact that I know I can produce events, and I do have some clients that I produce events for. First and foremost, my passion is in entertainment and in production and in creating. So whilst I know I can do certain things and I've been able to dabble in certain things, it's not to say that, well, that's all I'm going to do. I know what I'm good at. I know what I love doing. I know what my passion is. But if a client does say, can you manage our event for us? And worry about everything from the logistics through to the toilets, portaloos, that kind of thing, site inspections and safety and security, disaster management, well, then absolutely I can. But many of my clients are also events agencies, and I never wanted them to feel like I was trying to compete with them. And many
yeah.
of them, I think, now know that 21 years later, I do have some clients who I do produce events for. But I'd also like to think that certainly people know me, and or they've heard of my reputation, and integrity for me is everything. How people perceive me, and I always wanted to be the kind of person that people respected and wanted to work for. They always felt that they were appreciated, they were paid on time, they were validated.
Yeah.
And I think also the older I've got, the less time for drama I have. So
Yes. Yeah.
you know
True.
if you
Yeah.
want to
It's
undercut
consuming
me,
too much.
go
Too much
ahead, do
energy.
it, do what you want to do. I don't have the energy. Yeah, because there are other things in life that are more important, and the other things that I think are the things we need to focus on, which are good for
Yes.
us mentally and physically and so on. But yeah,
Yes.
I'm very glad that I was able to find that niche, and it might have come maybe easier to me. It might not come as easier to other people. Just as much as a person who sees the glass half full versus a person who sees the
Exactly.
glass
Yeah.
half empty. You naturally either
Exactly.
think one way or the other. And thankfully,
Yeah,
I always see the glass half full. I don't ever see it
yeah.
the other way. It doesn't mean I'm
It's
happy every day.
amazing.
It
Right.
doesn't mean that.
It's amazing. No, but what I also think it like is really important, and I mentioned that the other day, but this is really also important that you say this. I think a lot of people, especially when they start out and when they are not successful, they are afraid of failing. But
Failure.
failing is part of the process. So you need to either embrace it or you are not an entrepreneur. And when you know that failing is an option, it makes it already difficult. I think failure is something that you put into your mind. It's not something real, it's not tangible. But
Mm,
if you like really are like, if your thoughts are about failure and like what if it doesn't work, what if it doesn't work, and if you don't say, well, you know what, if it works, how amazing would it be, like where would I would like end up, like what would be possible if it can, like if it would work. I think it's a mindset as well that
mm,
helps, like really also for a lot of young people, and specifically now, because I mean now there is, even though a lot of people don't think like that, but there is an empty playing field for a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are possible right now that a lot of people have never thought about would be possible in 100 years. A lot of people, sadly, obviously, have companies that will be out of business. But for those 10, 3, 5, 7, 8 more can come and can play. You know,
and for
and
the
I think
others, maybe there's other opportunities again.
Mm.
I think also there is we discussed this the other day. There is a time right now also where everyone has to question themselves: is it the right thing that I'm doing? Is it really what I want to carry on for the next 10, 20 years or 5 years or whatsoever? And there's nothing wrong with that. Is nothing wrong that I'm questioning myself, is this the right thing what I'm doing? If yes, just carry on. If you have doubts, maybe just have a look. If there's something that you maybe like more, or which is more suitable to you, or like I always said I had the best ideas in my worstest times, because then I had to make a plan. Then I had to go out of my comfort zone. Then
Yeah.
I had to do something what I never thought I'm going to do. If everything would have gone according to plan, I would have been a vet in the bushes, like that. That's what it is. But as you can see, the plan went totally different. I think that's what it is. That's life. I think this is
Absolutely.
what we all have to accept. And I think the if I would have known this when I was younger, I would have less stress through the beginning of my career.
I hear you.
but I also think, and I mean, this is now maybe a question for you, because entertainment in a time of a pandemic, I personally think arts generally, and I put
Yeah.
entertainment like under this umbrella,
Yeah.
is super important.
Yeah.
Like I think like nobody like comes out in this time without listening to music, without maybe going back to watching more TV,
Movies.
wanting maybe to visit a gallery, just going out and like doing things to see, you know, that
Mm.
inspires also their imagination. On the other hand, I mean, we have read Cirque du Soleil went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I think people might have less money maybe for cinema, um, like theater, musical, stuff like that. How do you see the current situation for? I mean, I think in South Africa, because for all other countries is rather like hard also to say, but to tell for South Africa, how is the events industry? And I mean, we've spoken to musicians the other day. You know, it's super hard for them
Yeah.
to just make a living.
Yeah.
But if you do this full time and you don't have a plan B, like it's very difficult to stay focused, because by the end of the day, obviously you need to bring like food to the table. You know, it's like
Yeah.
really basic right now. People are not
Yeah.
even talking about touring or like, you know, going to another country or stuff like this, because events as such are not possible. Weddings are not allowed, private events are not allowed. I mean, funerals are allowed, but there's not enough funerals for all the artists out there like to just be a part of it. So what is your take and what is your feeling about how the entertainment industry is affected, and how is it going to be shaped by what's happening right now?
You see, I think, and it's such a difficult question. I mean, I can give you my own personal insights. It's not to say that it's right or wrong. It's just my own view. But I think, first and foremost, people don't realize the impact and the value of what the creative arts industries, the live events industries, our industry brings in terms of value to an economy. And I think until people realize that, I don't think anything is going to change. When you look at the fact that a couple of weeks ago, the UK approved a £1.5 billion relief fund or such to the live events industry. I mean, people, if TV suddenly ceased to exist, if you couldn't log into a Netflix or any of these streaming sites, Amazon Prime, Hulu, whatever, if the channels didn't have content to play, if you couldn't log on to a YouTube site and take a virtual tour of a museum or a gallery, if none of those things were available, people would suddenly realize how much art plays in their lives. It could even be audiobooks.
Yeah.
If you couldn't pay a performer to read and record a book for the purposes of creating audiobooks, all of these things, suddenly then you would realize. But because everyone is very it's very easy at the moment for people to log on to the streaming platforms, the DSTV bouquets, the SABC channels. It's easy for people to access online content. People haven't really, I think, completely understood what dire straits our industry is in. I mean, it seems unfathomable to me when I read that Cirque du Soleil was declaring bankruptcy. I mean, I have been so fortunate to see so many Cirque du Soleil productions around the world.
I'm such a big fan. I
Yeah.
have been like to, I think, five shows like all around the world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
and I was shocked. Like when I read this, I was like, whoa. I mean, and it's a Canadian, I mean, based company.
Yeah,
So you would
correct.
even think, you know, like, okay, they are maybe better off. You know, it's not an African production. Like it's really, you would think, okay, they have the right precautional measures. They have funding. They have savings. They have whatever. But when
You see, that's the thing. But that's the thing is that, and your mum and I were talking about this earlier before we went live, is the fact that nobody could have foreseen how long this would continue for. So it's all very well to have savings and to have plans in place. But when you are in purpose-built theaters and your staff overheads are hundreds of thousands of rands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and you rely on those ticket sales, there's only so long you can run for where there is zero money coming in. And this is going to continue. I mean, you can't run a theater with 50 people maximum. No show, no producer. With, I mean, 50 people is just the running costs of a theater and all the additional costs that now have to come into play, and who's going to pay for these additional costs in terms of the sanitizing and the cleaning and how often you need to clean. I mean, that adds a good additional amount of money onto your expenses. So I think, number one, people haven't really realized the full extent of what position the events industry, the entertainment and production industry, no one's really realized, because content is still readily available. Things are still free online. People can still access great content online. Yes, there are artists, both local and international, that are trying to do things, but unless you have a solid following, how much money can you realistically make? If you are a freelance dancer, you're not anyone famous, you perform in live theater shows, corporate or musicals, and you earn a weekly salary, you have 459 followers on Instagram, how are you going to actually make any money of value? So many of us are doing things and have done things over the last few months, not because we're making money, but because it's keeping us mentally stimulated. It's keeping us creatively stimulated. But after a while, we have to kind of get to that realization that we can't keep on doing this. We can't keep on providing content for people just because we want to keep creatively busy and mentally stimulated when we're actually not being able to monetize it. And unless it's no longer available, only then will people kind of realize that, okay, we're actually, without realizing it, enjoying the benefits of all of these platforms and audio streaming books and online gallery tours and TV, video, on demand, all of that kind of stuff, because it's still all available. We can still watch TV at night. We can still read our books. We can still go online and see a variety of content. I mean, I'm every day being invited to buy tickets for this one-man show. The Grahamstown National Arts Festival is now a virtual online experience where you can buy tickets. But not everyone is like one of South Africa's top comedians, Mark Lottering, who sold 14,000 tickets to his one-man show, which is a substantial amount of money when you look at what the cost is per ticket. The cost per ticket is actually minimal. And even what the ticket services provider takes as a commission is also, it's nominal. And as an artist, you can earn a lot of money that way, but not everyone has a following, wherefore you could hope to get 14,000 people. So I'll be honest, I don't know what the future is. You were talking about, looking at reinventing ourselves and using this time now to kind of look at where we are in the industry, what value we can provide, all those kind of things. And even I am still trying to find my place in this new way of working. I'm expected to understand a lot more of the technical aspects of online streaming and how it can benefit a client. I'm expected to understand, or at least be able to share with them in very basic language, what platforms offer them, what could be best for them. And just because there are all these new bells and whistles and things that are available, it doesn't automatically mean it's right for the client. So I'm having to learn all of this stuff that I would never have thought. I'm having to be far more technically minded than I would ever have thought I would have needed to be. So I mean, it's just, it's heartbreaking that at the beginning of the lockdown, when people realized that this was going to be something that would impact so negatively on their income, it started off trying to help people with vouchers and food parcels. Now it's becoming about rental, mortgages, car payments, people having to move out of home. And there's only so much we can assist people with, because it's kind of like the same people having to provide assistance. And without government support, without government funding, I be honest, like I don't know. I don't know what's in store for our entertainment industry, because I don't see how it can operate in the live space with a limit of 50 people. And I don't see, theaters opening anytime soon, live events, big banquets, big weddings. And people might rather choose. I mean, if you're a bride, you'd possibly want to look at delaying your wedding. Maybe you might have a civil ceremony, but you might decide that, well, I'll wait for the big one when lockdown kind of stops, or when they find a cure. But what company is going to be able to wait that long? And I think that's also where I'm kind of finding myself in that kind of like, okay, am I trying to find a different way of working?
Or am I going to wait? I did not expect like to tell us. I mean, we wish everyone would have a crystal ball, that you can see like what is happening.
Yeah.
Maybe not even next year, like what is happening next month. I think next week is already difficult because like the whole script can change and things can change. We've just seen it. I mean, from last night to tonight to today, completely unexpected, and like things change. But maybe tell me, I mean, I'm a big fan of live, always been a big fan of live music. I mean, I've done living room concerts. I really like this personal touch. When you're not talking to people about like the technology and what maybe is possible in bringing like entertainment home or to whichever like place in the world, personally, and I mean, I don't know if you can say like your personal preference, but do you think people are going to buy in like technologically supported events the same way as if they would like buy a ticket, go to a theater or show, or go to a concert? Because I always think like, like as much as even you watch a concert on TV, there's nothing like going there and like standing there and listening the people chanting the lyrics, and like, this is just a complete different scenario. But do you think it's possible to really, I don't know, 3D or like virtual, like I don't know, like virtually animated, to stand in the crowd with the what is it called, like with
the virtual reality glasses
and stuff like this? So
augmented reality, I mean,
this is the future, but maybe I'm old school, but
no.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
No, can I tell you something? No, listen, Sylvia, I'm singing probably from the same hymn book, but for me, I think what a lot of people thought in the beginning was that our industry could be compared to other industries and could easily make the shift into online. And I think people thought for a while that that was going to be the way to go. No, it's definitely not. You cannot compare a live event and the way that you engage and connect emotionally with an audience. You cannot get that online. I mean, I'm a fan of being able to watch great content when it's filmed beautifully, like when it comes to a concert. I love being at a concert for the vibe, for the spectacle, for the scale of it. It's amazing. And nothing can compete with that. And when everyone is singing, as you said, everyone's singing, the chorus of a song, whatever the case may be, and it's the whole experience of preparing to go to that concert, to go to that event. The best thing about being able to then watch a recording of that concert, for example, at home is, for me, from a creative perspective, I love being able to see up close and personal certain things. that I might not have focused on when I was there in a live capacity. But our industry is not something that, for me, this is temporary. This is not an absolute solution of, well, when things get back to normal, because who knows what normal is now. But when
What's
things get back
normal?
to some kind of a routine, people are going to be so starved for wanting to get back to connecting with people. Concepts like the
Social life.
online streaming and silent discos, etc. All these things are fantastic. But
Yeah.
nothing will take away from the experience of being part of a live audience at a live event and the spectacle of it. And already we're seeing, by virtue of how people are reacting to the laws and the policies and procedures put in place, people are still going out. They're wanting to get back. People are feeling cooped up at home. There's only so much you can watch online and have a bit of a party with yourself. Like, yay, I'm here on my own. Lovely. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
No,
No.
not. It's not.
No.
I think you already these days you get tired. Like in the beginning, all those Zoom calls and like Skype and like this was exciting somehow, But I think right now you're already getting tired in a way,
Well, it was
about
novel.
like.
I think in the beginning it was novel, and I want to say from the beginning, before I make my next statement, that I support and I salute all my friends that are doing things online. But I'm so tired
Yes.
now of being invited to somebody singing in their bath, in their living room, on their roof, on their garage, in their garage, under their table, in the kitchen, on a balcony, in a swimming pool. I'm like, okay, I've had it, guys. I want to get back to traveling. I want to get back to live events. I want to get back to experiencing and doing the things that I know I'm good at. Like I said earlier, I'm still trying to find my way in this new world. And I mean, it's also just such a cliched way of approaching it, but
Yeah.
it is. I'll
But
be
just
honest with
go
you. Like,
back to the just go back to the old world. There was Kali just saying she worked with you
yeah,
a couple of times and she
I
loved
saw that.
working with you. And I want to say one
Thanks, Carly.
thing. What what I what I actually, when I hear your name, or when I remember your name, when it comes up, there is one thing I will never forget you. I gave you once a call and I wanted, or I asked you for your support, and very un-South African, let me say like that. You helped me, and not asking for anything, and I will never ever forget that. And this qualifies you as a very special person, as a very
Thank
special
you.
entrepreneur. And I think, even though that maybe I have not told this story to a lot of people, now this is what I can maybe give back to you as a compliment. This is
Thank you.
something, and we spoke about that when Alfie asked me, like, and I said, this is the gentleman from that event, and she said, okay, like, this is something you will ever in my
Thank
memory
you.
with this particular phone call. I think that's
Thank you.
something I wished in our industry also we would have more. Uh, Sometimes I feel, and I remember you said right at the beginning a sentence that stuck in my head. Actually, you said, "I learned when I was traveling how to work in a team, how
Mm,
others actually work together." And I think this is something coming from Europe. We actually learned quite
Differently.
differently. Yeah, I don't want to qualify this, but maybe in Africa, so everyone was like in the history had to survive the elephants, and whatever. Maybe this is still in the genes, I don't know. But I think that we are all live together in a modern world, so we have to work together. There's
mm,
nothing wrong working together, and I think the cake is big enough for all of us, and
mm.
this is sometimes what I feel, that is not really come, or it doesn't come really through to everyone. There's still a lot of jealousy, or there's still a lot of
Yeah.
uncertainty if people should work together. Tell us maybe a little bit, like, what
Mm.
what is it the most significantly what you learned, like, outside in the world, that helps you to be successful in Africa?
So I want to just say on your one point, and first of all, thank you so much. I so appreciate your compliment, and I will graciously and gracefully accept it. I've
There's
always
no
believed.
question. We just like throw it
Thank you.
out there.
I
But
don't
I
take
do.
it back. I don't take it back. There's no
I do
guarantee on that.
think. I do think so much of our industry is about relationships and the relationships that you cultivate and you maintain. I don't believe in burning bridges, and I don't see why people have to be as insecure or as disrespectful, as closed-minded. I think I'm confident enough in myself that if clients want to go somewhere else because I haven't delivered on a good service, then that's their choice. If they want to go somewhere because somebody else is cheaper than me, better looking than me, younger than me, or whatever the case may be, then they must go. I mean, I want to enjoy what I do. Not every day I love what I do. Not every day is that wonderful birds chirping and it's sunshine and roses. Not every day is like that. But
That is
I mean,
normal, but that's
yeah,
normal.
We
absolutely.
thought
But
your industry is like that.
no, but for me, I've always wanted to continue learning. I've always wanted to continue being challenged. I've always wanted to continue enjoying what I do. So for me, if I mean, there's no retirement date in our industry. I don't believe. If you can continue being relevant and current and in keeping with the times, you can work until, the day you pass on, really. So if I still have another 30, 40 years ahead of me, please God, should I still be around and still be working for that long, I want to continue enjoying what I'm doing. And I've always believed, treat others the way you want to yourself be treated. So it's about respecting and validating other people's opinions and contributions to your event. As a producer, I believe that you're only as strong as the team that you surround yourself with. It doesn't say that therefore you're passing the buck and, oh, well, you're basically just great at delegating. No, it's about understanding who is good at what they do, and not being ashamed or embarrassed to admit that. I don't know how to light a show. I'm not a lighting designer, but I will employ somebody who does. I know what I want, and I can tell them what I want, and I can paint a picture and share a story, and I can sit while they program on all these fancy buttons. I don't know how to do that, but I can tell if they're getting inside my head with what the vision is that I have. And the one thing that I've experienced overseas is when you come in, initially I always felt that coming from South Africa, I was at a disadvantage because I thought that people would look at me as coming from a third world country, and therefore, what do I know? What am I going to teach them? Because if you're from Europe or any other first world country, instinctively you might feel superior to someone like me coming from a third world country. And what I found was the minute I was introduced as a producer from South Africa or one of South Africa's top producers and directors in the live event space or whatever, and I went in with not only a sense of confidence, which is not to be confused with arrogance, by the way, confidence, and also a genuine desire to want to work alongside with. It's not about me coming in inferior, and it's also not about me coming in like a bull in a china shop wanting to show them how fabulous I am, but it's wanting to work with them and learn from them. I'll never forget, I was directing an event in Times Square in New York the week before the Grammy Awards a couple of years ago. I couldn't understand the technical team were these hardcore New Yorkers, and they were just not giving me the time of day. It was like I'd ask a question, I'd ask for something, and I would kind of get brushed off. And eventually I called the team aside and I said, guys, I don't know what's going on here, but I want you to know that this is how I work. We're part of a team. It's not you and me. It's not my job is more superior to your job because you're the crew, you're the technicians, you're doing all the slog work and you're expected to work tonight. I need you. I need you to be on your game. I need you to work with me, not against me. I said, so tell me what you need from me. Tell me what you need me to communicate to the rest of the team to ensure that you have the breaks you have, or you have the minutes and hours that you need to finish something. And it was amazing. The minute I gave them that opportunity to voice their frustrations, their concerns, or to tell me what it is that they needed or wanted in order to work effectively to make me look good, the whole mindset shifted entirely. And it was these big, hurly-burly American guys, with their thick New York accents. And, I just was like, guys, I'm working with you, not against you. So please don't work against me. We had the most incredible time. And after the event, they came to me and they said, David, we just want to say thank you. No one has ever treated us with the kind of respect that you have treated us with. And I said, you know what, guys, I'm doing nothing out of the ordinary. I said, I'm not coming in here trying to suck up to you because I'm from a different country or whatever. This is how I would treat and work with anyone in my country or anywhere else in the world. And so I felt that from that perspective, it validated that what I do, who I am as a person and the way I think is right. For me anyway.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be somebody that I'm not, but do unto others as you would have done to you, treat others the way you want to be treated, and just validate and respect and be mindful of the services that they offer and what they bring to you as a team. And it shouldn't be a forced thing, because people can also see if it's just pretentious, really, or it's an act. And no matter where I've worked, I've learned to go in with that mindset of working with a new team and also wanting to learn from, as opposed to coming in with an arrogance and an attitude or a superior attitude, whatever the case may be is. So I don't even think it's an African or a South African thing. I think it depends on you as a person. You know, not everyone necessarily thinks like me. I'd like to think maybe that's one of the advantages and the positive aspects of working with someone like me. And I do love hearing that validation from people. I love hearing from people that after the event, they really enjoyed working with me. They'd like to work with me again, because then there might come a time when maybe I don't have the kind of budgets I had in the past, or I might need a favor. And that's why the relationships are so important, because they also don't necessarily see you as taking advantage when you do ask for a favor. They see you as part of a family, as part of a live events community, and one hand washes the other. And if the door remains open, if you can help me, then by all means, let me know if at any point I can help you, you know?
Yeah. And we in German, we have a saying, the echo from the forest is the same how you actually call into the forest. Is that correct?
Yeah,
something
so the
like
way
that.
how you you raise your voice in the forest, the same, like
it echoes. It echoes. Yeah. But let me say one thing. What I completely disagree, and I always say this when I can. There's only one world. There's no one first world, and there's no third world. Never actually disqualify you coming from a third world. This is not possible, because there's only one world, and we all live in that one world.
I so agree.
In the east, in the south, in the west, wherever. But there's only one world, because I think coming from another part in the world that people call first world and living in another part of the world that people call third world, for me, this is very weird. I can't.
But there are things that are possible here that would never be possible in a first world country.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And it is like much more than first world. And there are obviously things that are
there's so much things that I value here, actually, that we never could experience, like over there in Europe or in America. I think we should be proud of a lot of things, of a lot even not. But that's
on the other side, the grass is not always greener.
No, but I do think that you need to experience all of that for yourself first, because I think whether it's taught or whether it's just a natural way of thinking, that because we're coming from the southernmost tip of Africa, we are therefore inferior. Until you can get out of that mindset. And I agree with you, Sylvia, 100%, that, it's just one world. We shouldn't think of ourselves as third world and first world and Western and not and whatever. But the fact of the matter is that, from a society, from children, we're ingrained into thinking along those lines. And so therefore, whereas I would naturally be slightly timid on an international event, you almost want to put up your hand and say, "Excuse me, I don't quite like what you did. Can you try this again?" Now and you know what, you can fake it till you make it, But if you go in with conviction, you can stand there. And I mean, with this music event, I was working with one of Latin America's most awarded artists. He has around, I think it's like 16 or 14 Grammy Awards. He's not as commercial, so I did not know of him before working with him. And he's an older man, and so I Googled him, and I was flabbergasted that I was even working with somebody of his stature. I may not have heard of him, but it didn't take away from his experience in the industry, how he had paid his dues, these accolades, and so on. And I went in and I was like, no matter who he is, I'm going in there as myself. And I'm going to tell him, this is what I want. This is where I want him to stand. This is how I'd like things to be. But at the same time, he needs to be true to himself because he's also much older than me. He knows what works for him. But this is my role. This is the job I'm being paid for. So I can't go in there and feel, inferior, or that I need to be scared to say what I feel,
Yes.
And I need to keep on reminding myself. I had to keep on reminding myself of that, I did have experience. I had done stuff. And it wasn't to say that because I'm not famous or because somebody hadn't heard of me, that therefore it diminished my experience and my capability or my knowledge, whatever the case maybe is. So once you break through that wall and you get over yourself that way, then it's like, whew, then it just opens up, because then you just go in and you just do.
Yes.
And then I become myself, then I just
wings to fly, then there's nothing that's dragging you down or like keeping you on the ground. You can just go. Can I ask, when you're working with, people like that, like generally, like where do you get your inspiration from? Because usually we look at all those like amazing shows that are pulled off like somewhere, but where do you get your inspiration from when you work with like people of that caliber as well? And like, is this something that you just, I don't know, is this your own vision, or do you have something that inspires you like generally, or is this old movies, or I don't know, like, is there something where you draw your ideas from?
I think it's a mixture of a number of different things. If you're working with a specific artist, you look at who they are as a brand, you look at their style of music, you're inspired by what it is that they do. If they have music videos, you look at the content and the styling of their music videos, what they wear and so on, what they as a brand represent. Then at the same time, you look at the content or the context of the show that they may be a part of, and if they fit into your overall concept. It is very easy to go online and on YouTube and to see the most incredible content and to be inspired. There is a difference between taking inspiration from something that you've seen and then completely plagiarizing it. And I think in some ways, clients have, it's like working in the wedding industry. Your client's gone to Pinterest and then they just bombard you with all these photographs. They want this, they want this, they want this. So you also need to be mindful of what the budgets allow. And sometimes, I've always said to clients, look, if your budget allows me to bring the CEO in on an elephant with fireworks and choirs and water fountains, that's brilliant. But if your budget also only allows me to bring in the CEO on a little tricycle with one person going with that little thing that goes on the, I'll make it look fabulous. We'll make it look fabulous, but you have to manage the expectations. So yes, I get excited and I'm inspired by things that I see online. That's why I love traveling so much, because I think I get to see a lot, but it also reinforces that what we do here is so good. And rather than sitting back and being upset because you think to yourself, oh, if only I could do this with the budget that I see, and becoming upset or despondent because, well, they've got the budget, so I obviously can't do it. My whole way of thinking is, and this is maybe where the glass is half full versus half empty, I sit back and I go, wow, look at what we're able to pull off, and we don't even have half that budget. Our clients spectacular things.
This is very African, like I think
absolutely.
Make something out of nothing, but let it look gorgeous.
But it just shows how creative we have to be and how resilient we have to be, because we don't have the same kind of budgets that they have overseas. But yet we're expected to pull rabbits out of multiple hats. And I love that as a challenge more than anything else. So inspiration for me is something that hopefully isn't forced. It's something that comes from being exposed to as much as possible, being able to experience as much as possible, but also working with your subject matter. It's like selecting a venue. The venue is going to inspire and maybe in some ways inform the direction that your entire creative might take. There's no point in a client wanting a winter wonderland theme, but suddenly they're choosing Mauritius as their destination wedding. It's like, okay, well, guys, we've got to look at what Mauritius is offering us. Look at the hotel, the facilities, the view, or whatever. Why go winter wonderland? Maybe you can go with some kind of fantastical wonderland that has elements of a bit of snow or something, but you've got to look at what the canvas is. So just like a venue might inform your theme, the artist performing, their style, their brand, the context in which they are in your show, all of those things will inspire the creative for that particular performance.
Mm-hmm. I have one question. I think my mom has a question that she's always asking.
How do you know about that?
But I want to know, what is your most favorite part of producing a show? Like from start to finish. Is there something like some moment in time when you're like, oh shit, like this is it now. This is really like the moment where you're like, okay, this is either when the curtain goes.
Actually teach you to talk like that, right?
I'm so glad you said the word shit, because I was like, great, so we're not in family time yet.
Very bad light on me.
Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, but we all have this, Beep.
That's such an easy one, Alfie. For me, it's audience applause. It's the audience reaction. We put so much pressure on ourselves to want to deliver, and you get so wrapped up in the client and what it is that they want and wanting to deliver and make sure that it runs smoothly. And no matter how many times you can critique something, no matter how many times you can find fault with something, when you hear the reaction of the audience, no matter how big or small, you see the faces of your audience and you realize how you're connecting. Everything else then kind of falls by the wayside. How many fights you had with suppliers, how many issues you had, what deadlines were missed, what changes you had to make at the last minute. Suddenly it all pales in comparison. Why? Because you see the people that you are creating this for, and you see their reaction. It just suddenly makes it all the worth it. And even if your client was pissed off with you, it is priceless, because even if your client was pissed off with you, when they've got people coming up to them and saying how amazing it was and showering them with compliments, and hopefully it's not pretentious, it's honest. It then makes it worth it. Then why nitpick on all the things that could have, should have, didn't, maybe, could have been, blah, blah, etc. Because you've connected with people. And that's what goes back to everything that I know we've been talking about since the beginning, is nothing can take away that connection with someone in an audience.
Mm-hmm. You are so right. While we are talking, or we were talking about also budgets, like we just touched it. What was actually the smallest budget and the biggest budget? Like the smallest when you said, oh my goodness, what I'm going to do actually with this. And the biggest when you said, is it real? Like, is there not a lot of zeros that actually is not happening? I mean, just like, I don't want to know too many details.
Sure.
Also not for whom and not for who and what, but what is it like that you say, okay, that is what we,
so that people maybe also, that people also, when they hear you talk, they understand, maybe they can contact you, not only if they're like, I don't know, their name is
million available.
Like Madonna,
look,
or like this. So that they also just know, like, you are available for
whatever
realistic.
I think, look, what I love, and I think this maybe speaks to anyone from outside of South Africa that's possibly watching this, whether live or at a later date, is the fact that I'm no longer governed by my location. So I always say to my international clients, rather open the door, talk to me first. Let's see if collaborating is a possibility. It doesn't have to be about, well, before we even start, we have to pay for David's flights and accommodation and his per diems or allowances. And then, we might as well find someone from within our own country. So I don't think, number one, that is a stumbling block, and it doesn't have to be a stumbling block. I've had situations where a client has offered me a budget and said, but that has to include your flights, your accommodation, and how you travel. But we'll pay for your food and all of those kind of things. And if it's reasonable and if it's feasible on a financial level, I'll consider it. But I'll also look at what is it in terms of the relationship. And in terms of my experience, am I going to learn from this? Am I going to be challenged? Is it going to be something different? And I might land up not even earning that much after the actual event, but I'll come out so much richer on so many other levels. So from an international opportunity, that's the one thing I look at. I do believe, and it's something I've never lost, no matter how small, or how big the event, or whatever my contribution is, I have the same amount of stress and I have the same amount of urgency that I attach to it. It can be a job where I'm not earning a single cent because the money just isn't there for me, but it's an existing client, or it might be a brand new client that is just desperate. And if I can help, it's not always about the money. I know it's a very difficult time
We have
now
a saying,
talking that
do
way.
a lot for a good picture. This is exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So every event, every project that I work on, I'll weigh up the pros and cons. Yes, I've done things where I've earned absolutely nothing, and I've probably had a bit more stress, and I've had to work harder than the projects where I've earned millions, in the double digits. But those I don't think define me. It's lovely to create the big spectacles. It's lovely to fly business class and be treated, with such respect that supposedly my role as a creative events producer kind of warrants. But at the end of the day, I'm still an actor who wanted to go and perform on a stage in front of an audience, who landed up suddenly producing and directing. So I will always be the actor at heart. And like I said in the very beginning, I went into this industry not because I thought I was going to make money. I went in because I knew I was going to earn a paycheck this week and a paycheck next week, and I was going to be a gigging actor. The fact that I can now travel the world and I can work internationally and I can work on big jobs, and it's 21 years later and I'm still here, is amazing. And I would never have even thought that 21 years ago.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day,
It's a
if you just remain
lifestyle,
true to
actually.
yourself, and it is a lifestyle. This is my passion. I never wanted to be anything else other than somebody in this creative events industry. And the fact that my path has kind of gone a little bit like that is perfectly fine with me. I feel very grateful, very blessed. Even during these trying times, I try and remind myself how grateful I should be, how grateful I need to continue being. And, please God, we get through this. How? I don't know. Where we will be in a few months, I don't know. I'm just trying not to be scared by it. I'm just trying to say, whatever it is, I will accept it and I will adjust as I need to. But yeah, I mean, we all want to look forward to the day that we can create beautiful, spectacular events again, have an audience that can appreciate the work we do, because that's inside us. That's inside me.
Yeah,
so
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We are people's people. But I think what maybe is one of the things that my mom usually liked to ask.
But
and
I left it for you now.
I like to ask. That is also something that I want to know. You have worked now with so many interesting people. Don't even name like all of them, but just really from just like ordinary things to extraordinary things. If you could like dream of something, and I mean, being a producer is also making dreams come true, and working on your dreams. If there is something like that you could think about now, where you say, wow, if ever I could have the chance to work with either X, Y, Z, or to do this and this and this would really be something that would be like cannot be paid with money, like it's really something where you say, wow, this is something that I really would love still to see,
dream, maybe
like a check mark behind
So
it.
what's interesting is I've always wondered if I was able to work on a project where budget wasn't a question. We're limited in our imagination by what the budget allows us to create.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what if budget wasn't an issue? What would I be able to create and think of? And someone who, aside from Cirque du Soleil, who I think have done that just tremendously, Franco Dragone is someone who I followed as the creative director at Cirque du Soleil, and then went on his own and has created the most incredible spaces in Vegas, in Macau, in Wuhan, in China, surprisingly.
Yes.
And I was fortunate to be in Wuhan a few years ago to see a show there of his. And I remember thinking to myself, if budget wasn't an issue, to think of things creatively and then to think of the technology that allows you to create and execute those things must be amazing. So I think to work on something where budget isn't an issue would be amazing, because I'd love to see what I would even think of that hasn't happened yet, and ways of doing things that haven't happened yet, because now I have the budget to create the mechanism, the technology to allow me to do this.
Yeah.
So I think aside from that, if budget was something that we didn't have to worry about or talk about, and it wasn't creating an event, I would still want to work on the Academy Awards. I mean, I'd love to win an Academy Award, but that ain't going to happen yet. But you never know. But I would love to work on the Academy Awards.
A bit more.
I was going to say, I'd love to work on the Academy Awards. I'd love to be on the production team. I'd love to see what goes into producing the live Oscars. And I would love to be a part of a creation of one of Franco Dragone, or even for that matter, Cirque du Soleil's shows, because they spend so many months and sometimes years developing a show. And to be part of a creative team like that would be such a dream for me. I would love that.
Okay.
Wow.
Amazing.
We wish that your dreams come true.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mean, we all need dreams, you know. I mean, this is what keeps us alive. This is what keeps us going. And I think specifically now in this time that we are in, there's a lot of dreams that a lot of people have, and it just keeps us moving forward. And I think that is important, because we need those things to just keep us sane in this time that we
well, that's the funny thing. I think I still talk to myself in the mirror sometimes when I feel like there's no one that I want to really confide in. So I'll talk to myself in the mirror, or I'll still have an acceptance speech, but rather than a water bottle or a bottle of shampoo, now my award, thank you, is my hand sanitizer, that I'm like, thank you so much for this award. Thank you for the recognition. But hand sanitizing spray.
Because we know that you strive on applause. So.
Yeah, and today we saved you actually from talking to your mirror. You could talk to us whenever you need to talk to somebody except of like your mirror. Then just like give us a call. We would be very happy to talk to you.
And you know what? And this is why I think platforms like this are so lovely. You know, whether there's one person watching or 10 people or 15,000 people, however many, it's lovely to have these conversations, because I think it continues that connection between us as a greater events family and community. And every so often, you know, somebody will something that you say, something that we discuss will resonate with somebody. And if you can just connect with one person, that's one person more that you never had the chance potentially before to connect with. So it's lovely. And I'm very grateful to the both of you for inviting me to be part of this and just to chat, and in an open and honest and easy, comfortable environment, which is fantastic. So thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And it is actually like what you say. We would have never had never time before, like in normal days, to do something, to sit an hour here. You wouldn't have time, we wouldn't have time, and even if we would have time, then we wouldn't have done it, because it was just not in our mind to have a normal chat without any business related content. And I think this is something what we learned during these days. We have to connect to each other. We have to talk to each other, because this is exactly what you said right now. This is creating a stronger relationship to another. And even for us, almost everyone we know that we have been talked. But it is so interesting to listen to the stories, to listen to the way how everyone actually came or became who they are today. And it gives me particularly, or us, a totally different understanding for the business, for the person, and
everyone who's listening.
Yeah, and everyone who's listening as well. And there's lots of people sometimes they call me and they say, listen, like your piece of the puzzle, that's really interesting. Sometimes I just get to it at night. So one lady actually phoned me and she said she was listening, and then when she actually fell asleep, it was about 2:00 in the morning. So she was listening one to another.
Yeah, we know this from Netflix only, but they say, you know what? I've been binge watching your piece of the puzzle, and I'm like, what?
Amazing.
But yeah, so thank you.
I mean, so much that in terms of, if I think of, and I know we're wrapping up, but so much of what's happened in my life has been circumstantial. It hasn't been necessarily that I always planned it this way. So even me going into the industry that I went into 21 years ago was never planned. It was circumstantial. It was the situation in South Africa at the time, the lack of shows, the lack of roles for me to audition for. So it was like, well, what must I do? These are the options. It's kind of like the same now for me, where this is the reality, circumstantial. This is not my choice. This is not of my own doing. It's not that I've planned badly, I've spent unnecessarily, I've lived above my means or anything like that. I don't know where our industry is going. I don't know where I'm going. But for now, I know that there will always be people that will be in a worse position than I am. And thankfully, I have my health. I have a roof over my head. I have food on my plate, and I have a partner who is not in our industry, thankfully, and is someone that I can also rely on, and I'm very grateful for that. Certainly, from a pride perspective, it's not something that I would have thought of at this stage of my life, my age, my career, that I would need to potentially rely on a partner. But I'm so glad that I have one, because I know so many people don't. They don't have parents or siblings or partners, spouses that they can rely on. So I think it's okay to have your bad days. It's okay to have down days and to worry and to be angry and frustrated. But if you can pull yourself out of that once you've had that moment and just keep on pushing, maybe we might see that light at the end of the tunnel as we come around the corner.
Yes.
That's the best final word, that there's nothing to add.
Yes. And thank you for your honesty. I think, in this time, we know that our business, and yours particularly as well, is a lot about a polished appearance, about being, or showing more than there is in a way. But I think we appreciate also your really honest and raw insights, and not having an answer for every question, and also being really honest about your personal situation right now, because I think a lot of people can relate.
Yeah.
They might not be still or they might not be in a position to even talk about this right now, because we also speak to a lot of people who say, you know what, I cannot talk about what is happening right now, which is okay. And I think this is also something that people need to know. It is okay not to be okay, and to try to maybe even to reach out, not to talk on a platform like that, but just to talk to people who they feel that maybe they understand, because I think there's a lot going on in our industry, and we at least from a personal perspective, we need to reach out hands to those people who might feel that they are drowning, or they might not feel that they're in the right space right now, because there are a lot out there. So thank you very much for your honesty. Stay safe.
Thank you.
We
And
wish you all the
both.
very best. Thank you again. Have a good evening. And
Thank you.
we just hope that things change for 2021.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
next
so
year,
much.
we are celebrating 21st anniversary.
David Bloch.
I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.